Good afternoon. My name is Gabe Elias, and as chairman of the Associate Student Speakers Program, I'd like to welcome you to our 6th program of the fall quarter. Today we have with us Dr. Mallick, the Chancellor of the Chittagong University, and Dr. Mallick Hug. They will discuss East Pakistan's political crisis and the U.S. role in supporting the military junta of Pakistan. Both speakers have recently visited the United Nations, and it now gives me great pleasure to introduce Dr. Mallick.
Mr. Chairman, ladies and gentlemen, we are extremely grateful to you for the courtesy which you have extended to us to speak to you this noon. You are aware, ladies and gentlemen, that 75 million people of my country, Bangladesh, formerly known as East Pakistan, have been fighting for over 6 months desperately to liberate their motherland from the colonial rule of an army government. You are also aware that the enemy had by now killed over 1 million people and had driven into exile another 9.5 million across the border to India for safety. The enemy has by now proved by its manner and kind of operation that it bears all the characteristics of a savage horde. It believes in the wanton destruction of property, private and public. It believes in the indiscriminate killing of men, women and children, innocent and unarmed. It believes in the raping of women in the presence of their husbands and children. Believes in the raping of girls in the presence of their parents. It believes in burning down of villages, grain shops, marketplaces. In short, it believes in the complete annihilation of all those social, moral, and spiritual values which mankind, as the best of God's creation on earth, have in all ages, in all countries, cherished. That's the kind of enemy we are fighting against. The killings, collective and selective, are still going on. We hear of reports of the villages being burned down, of houses being set on fire, and the fleeing inmates from the burning houses gunned down. We hear of reports of teachers and students still being lifted from the universities and colleges, tortured, and are never heard of again. We hear of girls being lifted from peaceful homes in the cities and the villages, never to be heard from again. As a result of these atrocities being committed by the Pakistan Army on our people, it's not surprising to find that about 25 to 30,000 people of my unfortunate country are crossing over to India every day for safety. Ladies and gentlemen, if the price of freedom and liberty has to be paid by a people in terms of blood and life, may I assure you that our people have paid that price enough. We have sacrificed enough of life and blood for freedom. If the price of freedom has to be paid in terms of miseries and sufferings of the people, with 9.5 million people turned into destitutes, I believe we have paid that price also. What did you actually want? Did you want this war and bloodshed, these sufferings of our people? No. If you recall to your mind, you will see that for the last 24 years, we are fighting for establishment of democracy in the country. We are trying to restore democracy in the country, to realize the liberty and freedom of the people. We have tried all these 24 years to reflect the hopes and aspirations of the millions that back in 1947 wanted and obtained a homeland called Pakistan. We wanted the end of army government in the country. We wanted autonomy for all provinces of Pakistan, not merely of East Bengal or Bangladesh alone. We wanted the end of exploitation of our people by a few in West Pakistan. This was our crime. For 24 years, we people from Bangladesh had tried to realize all those ideals for which back in 1940s we wanted to have a separate homeland. What did you get in return? Hundreds of our people have suffered, have lost their lives. Thousands of our people have courted arrest and remained behind the bar without trial. In spite of that, the people of my wing had tried to sustain and continue in life of an artificial state called Pakistan. You know perhaps that the two wings of the country are separated by over 1,000 miles of Indian territory. Such an artificial state, a geographical absurdity in the political form could have possibly existed and continued had democracy been obtained and had rights of the people could be obtained, and if the provinces and regions could have provincial and regional autonomy. It's all these that we tried to get in vain. The final crackdown, as you know, took place on the night of 25-26 March 1971. You're also aware that prior to that, we had, for the first and the last time, a general election in the country in December 1970. The results of the election showed that Awami League, headed by Sheikh Mujibur Rahman, a Bangladesh-based political party, had secured an absolute majority in the National Assembly of Pakistan. Awami League secured 167 seats out of a total of 169 for East Pakistan. That gave to the Awami League an absolute majority in a house of 313. General Yahya, as you know, promised to transfer power to the people's representatives, promised to the people back in 1969 a constitution and a government of the people. Now, it was now for him to decide what he should do. Instead of handing over power as promised, he decided to crack down. Under cover of negotiation with Sheikh Mujibur Rahman over constitutional issues, he had the arms and ammunition brought in large quantity from West Pakistan to the east. He had the army brought into East Pakistan in large number through the Chittagong port and Dhaka airport. In this way, he had his preparations made. He would not like to hand over power to the people's representatives, as that would mean the end of army government in the country. That would mean the end of exploitation of the people of East Bengal, 75 million of them, by a handful of families in West Pakistan. He would not like to hand over power to elected representatives because that would be a Bengali-dominated government. He knew for certain that once the democratic government is set up in the country, that would be the end of monopolies and cartels in the country. For long 24 years, the people of my country, who did contribute 70% of the total foreign exchange, the total of Pakistan, were deprived of their earnings. 90% of the foreign earnings of my people were spent in West Pakistan, leaving to us only 10% of our earning. 80% of the development fund had been spent all these years for development of West Pakistan. And 22 families had acquired under the army government 60 to 70% of the total national wealth. So these are figures I don't quote from my imagination. These are figures in government records. So you will therefore realize that the 75 million people who did constitute 56% of the total population of Pakistan were politically dominated and economically exploited. You'll therefore appreciate that it is a government backed by an army in which you find 91% from the other wing and 9% from my wing. The domination was possible because the power clique had the backing of a powerful army, and that army belonged to them. It was possible because the people of West Pakistan were not as politically conscious as we in the East are. We claim that we are more politically conscious because of historical and social reasons than our brothers are in the other wing. So that was the position. When the crackdown took place, when university campuses were shelled for several hours, when our people are killed indiscriminately, when women raped, our property destroyed, what could we possibly do? We realized that we are facing a situation where our race, as the Bengali race, will be totally annihilated. With all doors for negotiation, for political movements closed on us, with the situation in which we found ourselves with only two alternatives, abject surrender or complete independence, we chose the latter, took up arms in self-defense to preserve that minimum of human dignity without which I hope you'll appreciate life is not worth living. So there we are. 75 million of us have taken up arms against the army government. We have no grudge. We have no enmity against the people of West Pakistan. If by our declaration of independence and sovereign status of our country, Pakistan has been disintegrated, had broken into pieces, well, the responsibility for such a situation rests at the door of Yahya government. Pakistan has been killed, has been destroyed on the night of 25-26 March by the senseless action of the army general with surprising lack of political wisdom. Do you regret? We don't. Because we did not want a Pakistan of the type that was there for 24 years. We did not want to have a Pakistan to be governed by the army eternally. We did not want to have a Pakistan where the rights, liberties, and freedom of the people will be mercilessly crushed by a powerful military machine. We did not want a Pakistan where the army would be maintained by the earnings of the toiling millions of Bangladesh, an army that had the license and liberty to kill our people indiscriminately, to rape our women in the manner they did. We did not want that kind of a Pakistan where we had to see the plight of 9.5 million refugees in a foreign country today. We didn't want to see a Pakistan where we have to take care of thousands of our women bearing soldiers' children. Therefore, when people talk of a political settlement, I should like to tell them on behalf of our people and on behalf of myself that there can be only one settlement possible, the settlement that would recognize a hard reality, a reality of a Bangladesh sovereign and independent, the reality of a people being a nation. I maintain that ethnically, culturally, linguistically, and geographically, we are a nation of 75 million people. You may ask me, why then did you live in Pakistan for 24 years? Well, we want to live in Pakistan as the homeland of the Indian Muslim on certain conditions. Conditions were that since Pakistan would be an artificial state, the only common factor being religion, since Pakistan would have so many nationalities like the Punjabis, the Pathans, the Sindhis, the Baluchis, and the Bengalis, that state could survive if all these national elements would be given autonomy in the region and the provinces. That did not happen. Therefore, we have no regrets. Pakistan, to us, is dead and gone. It is now buried under a mountain of human corpses. It is buried deep under rivers of blood of innocent people. There can be no question of a settlement other than the one which I referred to. Now, we want to end this war. How do we end this war quickly? How do we settle the issue quickly? There are two alternatives left open for the world. Either to pressurize the government of General Yahya from all quarters to see reason and sense, to end this genocide, recognize Bangladesh, and have a peaceful parting of the ways. We recall to our mind the fact that in 1947, we had similar situation. We did not have to fight a battle for that, a war for that. Exercise our right of self-determination, the British left the country and the companies were parted. That Pakistan was a result of democratic process. It was the result of the exercise of the right of self-determination of 100 million Muslims. If that were so, why can't it be today? 75 million people persecuted, harassed, exploited, politically dominated for 24 years. has shown enough of patience. If today there's a complete breakdown, we can't help it. Therefore, the governments of the world can possibly pressurize the government of Yahya, that senseless man, that usurper to power, that killer of mankind, that will accept the reality of the situation, have the parting of the ways across the table, end the sufferings of the people. This is one that the states of the world can do. Secondly, you are aware, ladies and gentlemen, while you have sympathy and consideration from people across the globe, lot of people do feel for us, have sympathy for our cause as you people have in this country. The governments everywhere are slow to move. They would not accept reality as quickly the people do. What is your government at the moment doing? On the one hand, your taxpayers' money is going for the relief and assistance of refugees now in India. On the other hand, your government is still continuing its policy of economic and military aid to the Yahya regime. This is an enigma to us. On the one hand, you are feeling for the refugees. You want to redress their suffering, but minimize their suffering by financial assistance. On the other hand, you offer financial aid, military aid, to a man who is guilty of worst genocide in human history. The man guilty before God and man. And that's the man you are going to fortify with economic and military aid, to kill more people, to create more refugees from my country to India. That's the burden you are putting on the shoulders of a neighboring country, India. People talk of Indo-Pakistan war. We don't understand. It's not a conflict between India and Pakistan. India did not advise Yahya to kill and murder people. India did not advise Yahya to send millions of refugees to her soil. Why should it be India-Pakistan issue? It's the issue between our people and the army government of Pakistan. That's the point your government should realize. That's the point the people all over the world should realize. We don't want to see India and Pakistan fight a war on our issue. We don't like to see our cause sabotaged by giving it the color of India-Pakistan war. That's not the main issue. Therefore, you, ladies and gentlemen, can possibly help in stopping this genocide, in stopping these miseries and sufferings of the people for whom you feel. If you persuade your government in any manner you think best to realize that it is not a policy that would be good for USA. Let me tell you that USA would not gain anything out of it. On the one hand, well, you find 75 million people struggling for liberation. They have given so much of blood, sacrificed so much, and you call your country a democratic country. So realize this, that 75 million people of Bangladesh would be free today or tomorrow. Nothing in the world can stop them. 200,000 young men like you have joined the Liberation Army. They are not paid soldiers. We will win the war. Today or tomorrow, but it's as sure as sunrise of tomorrow. But what do you gain by following this policy of aiding the Yahya regime? You make it difficult for 75 million people, as and when liberated, to forget the antagonistic role of your government. You lose whatever goodwill, if that means anything to you, from the 75 million people. What do you gain on the Indian subcontinent? India and Pakistan are deadly enemies for long 24 years. By helping Pakistan with arms and economic aid, you alienate the already alienated feelings of the Indian government. You lose their friendship also. What do you gain in Pakistan? Pakistan, West Pakistan government, the army government is being held by both the Chinese and your government, running a race. What will the government of USA gain in the ultimately? Well, Pakistan would like, Yahya would like, that he be held, he be bailed out by fighting his war. Americans to fight the war in Bangladesh. You are not going to do it, I know. What happens? Yahya will have to pull out of Bangladesh today or tomorrow. He will come with a sour mind back home and will not feel happy about the type of American aid he had. you lose there too. You want stability in South Asia, balance of power, peace in South Asia, you don't gain by following this policy. The war will continue, bloodshed will continue, sufferings will continue. How do you gain your objective? This is a point, I know, it's too much of importance for me to say all these things, but I know you know it. So ladies and gentlemen, may I request, appeal, that you do make a move to make your senators, your government, your president realize the points we have in mind. Meanwhile, may I appeal to you also for financial assistance so the refugees can be looked after till such time we take them back home when the country is liberated. It's a great human problem. India alone cannot do it. And the help of the entire mankind is necessary to preserve the life of these refugees. 500 children, as you know, are dying every day. We need assistance also there. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Mallick. And now I'd like to introduce Dr. Ashabul Haq.
Mr. Chairman, ladies and gentlemen, you have heard the background of the human sufferings and misery. I, for myself, will try to tell you how and under what circumstances we are pulled into a situation through which 75 million of our people are now passing. Ladies and gentlemen, as you all know, that before 1947, this part of the globe was ruled by British colonials, rulers. There was an independence movement for more than 100 years. The Britishers fought the Second World War, withering away their economic foundation. Result was, in 1947, it was for the Britishers to hand over power to the people of Indo-Pak subcontinent. Now, to whom to hand over power, that became the question. There was a general election prior to handing over power, and that was in 1946. Muslim League, who posed itself to be the exponent of Muslim interest in that subcontinent, contested that election on the issue of Pakistan, more or less in the character of a referendum. In those days, there are a few people in the Muslim and a British India who just could raise a faint voice, Pakistan or India, question must be settled right here and now. Who is going to own? Whether the capitalist reactionaries, landlords and zamindars, or the people of that country, a subcontinent. Pakistan or India, or only India, matter has to be settled right here and now. But the voice was so faint, we were so microscopic in number, we could not make the world hear that, bring sense to this voting population. Result was that there was a Pakistan with the hope that since the Muslim majority area people are already very much poor, can possibly expect a democratic country wherein the people, common man, can just guide the destiny of the future. During the last 24 years, history is immediately after Pakistan was achieved, few handful of people took up the helm of the situation with the blessings of their money at their disposal. Immediately followed suit the bureaucrats of the country who just Pakistan inherited from the British bureaucracy. Followed suit were the army generals, which were again out of the British fighting forces. Ever since 1947 onward till this moment, that part of the country is ruled by a force complex of army, bureaucrats and the financier magnates. Ladies and gentlemen, it had been our plight to to fight this force all the ways. Ever since 1947-48, the fight has started. It has taken a final shape today. It is nothing new to us, might be very much new to the world outside, but those who have been fighting tooth and nail, step by step, every inch of the land during the last 24 years, it is nothing new. All that is new is, can human being, can in the name of maintenance of law and order, an army government claims to be a civilized world, a part of the civilized world. A member of the United Nations can successfully precipitate a genocide. That was unknown to us. All that we expected that in a process of constitutional movement through people's power, the people's will, we can very well, in a constitutional and human way, in a democratic and a civilized way, we can change the face of that part of the world. Ladies and gentlemen, this started in 1948 when the West Pakistan, where live only 44% of the total Pakistan population, took an onslaught on our cultural life, denying 56% language, Bengali, as a state language. That fight continued up to 1952, wherein our children, our students had to lay down their blood and life right on the roads of the capital city of East Pakistan in Dhaka. After laying down blood and life, we could preserve our cultural front. There then started explaining the military exploitation of the economic sphere of the world. Economic world. Since that day onward, no government of the people has been allowed to work and function in that part of the country. 1954, they tried a provincial election. The Muslim League, the reactionary group, the political force in the name of a political party, which was all the time was bartering the necessity and the interest of these reactionary groups, were completely swept off their feet. Result is, they are not allowed, though the people of East Pakistan, now Bangladesh, voted en bloc for the United Front, they are not allowed to carry on the functions of the government, denied. Subsequent history is 1958, the army could not check it, accepting that denying total democracy and total people's will. By that, Yahya Khan, predecessor Ayub Khan, the general who made himself subsequently the field marshal, came into power, ruled that part of the country. Subsequently, for the next decade, could not maintain himself lifelong in power. People revolted, both East and West Pakistan, in search of democracy, in search of free life. He was thrown overboard. Yahya came in to fill up the vacuum, and Yahya just promised a one man, one vote election. 56% of East Pakistan, as you heard from my predecessor, from my friend, that they swept the poll with one word, that there should be autonomy in the area, there should be democracy, there should be free life for people, and there should be total participation of the entire human society of that part of the world to build up their future in any shape and form they like. That was all the wrong. That the people of East Pakistan voted against this junta. All the wrong that we wanted that the people should decide their fate. All the wrong that we must be the master of our own situation. In the name of negotiation, protracted, long-drawn talks to be settled constitutional issues, never heard of, to be settled behind the National Assembly, behind the back and knowledge of the National Assembly members. Yahya wanted to settle certain problems, which is unheard of. Still then, believing in constitutional movement, we gave him that chance to talk. But they just bought time to build up their army installation in East Pakistan, transferred a lot of army, arms and ammunition from west to the east, only to crack down on 25th, 26th night, denying the people's vote right, denying the people's verdict, denying all that humanity stands for till today. Result is, from 26th onward, what was alternative left to us? I was a man who was very much in politics, though it had been my profession to help human beings to survive, to treat human beings as a doctor. I had never been trained in a way to kill human beings. But on 26th night, when I was informed that the army has cracked down in my district headquarters, that they claimed 30 hours curfew on sleeping population of that town, what alternative I had? Only thing as surrender to the army, only voting for turning these 75 million people into a group of dumbfounded millions, subsequently turned into a nation of slaves and prostitutes. I could not possibly contribute to that idea. Result is, by that midnight, I walked out, moved about all the night till 10 o'clock next morning, talked to my people, raised them to the occasion. They just wanted to leap to the occasion and decided that they are going to resist. I told them that they had enough of danger ahead. They must stake not only their life and family, but all that they have in the world. They agreed. The people took an unarmed civil population of the country, just stood up against the crackdown of the army. And in that way, we are still continuing. Now the question comes, where from we got the arms and ammunition? There are very few arms and ammunition already with the police, already with the EPR, the border militia. There was some reserved arms for the Answers. The foreign boys who are trained in rifle training in that part of the area, they have some arms and ammunition reserved with the government. I had to take it over. The arms and ammunition are taken. The police, the EPR, the Answers, they all joined hands. Common man came with, if he had nothing, at least he had a bamboo club in his hand to resist the army. That is how the 26th started. And that 26th is still continuing. The longest day that our people has ever experienced. I don't know when it is going to end, but that 26th will continue until the hordes of West Pakistan, just forced to leave that country, whether across the table or by fighting, continue killing each other. And by this time, I can only assure you that it is not paid soldiers, as my friend said. It is all the graduates and undergraduates of universities and colleges are there to fight their enemy. They are just conscious people. They don't accept any pay. They are not paid soldiers, but they are these torchbearers of freedom of that area. Ladies and gentlemen, result is more than 9 million people are already on the soil of India. Only because, please look into the map and you will find that the three sides of Bangladesh or East Pakistan is just covered by Indian soil. This fourth part is the south, where is the Bay of Bengal. People cannot possibly march into water to live. So naturally, they had to live in search of life, in search of shelter unto the land of India. 9 million people are there. 30,000 still crossing every day. Yahya says normal is the situation. But how is that? Can he explain that 30,000 people unarmed, unfed, barehanded, farm families are just walking out of the country in search of life? It will continue. I know 12 millions by next few months' time onto the shoulder of India. But come what may, we shall fight it out. It is for us to tell you that 400 to 500 children are dying every day. I can only tell you that go to any refugee camps. You will see loose skin is hanging over the skeleton of these children, only marking time and moments, counting moments to go to the grave. I have seen these young children, swollen feet and hands, puffed faces. I know they are not going to survive, only to die day after tomorrow. I know the older generation, out of hunger, starvation, malnutrition, they are also marching towards the grave. We have given enough of life, enough of blood, during action or beyond action. But the question remains that if the world humanity wants to rise up to the occasion, on one hand, while they are very much conscious about the symptom of the situation, which I call it the refugees are the symptom of the disease. The symptom is the refugees. While you are taking care of the symptoms, may I ask that the world should take and think radically to eradicate the cause of it. The cause is the army Janta's rule which they want to precipitate, which they have precipitated and want to continue in that part of the country. Ladies and gentlemen, before I take my seat and invite your questions, I would only tell you that my experience in the fighting of our people had been so much so encouraging that I have enough of reasons to believe that we are going to win today or tomorrow. It is a matter of time, but certainly that end will never be missed. I don't understand one thing. Before I take my seat, I must tell you a few words how the American government, taking along with it the American flag and its people, to be an abettor of a greatest genocide the world has ever seen. It is a flat question on the citizen of America. It is a flat question on the government in America. It is a flat question on the flag of America. The flag which flown one day just to liberate themselves against colonialism. In that case, I don't understand, has America forgotten her own history? If America claims to be the believer of humanism, I don't understand how can we be directly involved in a genocide which world has never experienced in the past. I don't for myself and don't understand why the American guns, American taxpayers' money, Americans' intelligence, Americans' advice is becoming a party to it. With these words and with these queries, I take my leave with the hope that the minimum time that is left out for questions. Thank you very much.
Okay, we have very few minutes for question and answer period, so if you do have questions, please make them as brief as possible and to the point. Yes, sir.
I don't understand why
Why China supports Pakistan?
Oh, I understand. Well, that's the same thing with me, I'm afraid, because China talks about the downtrodden masses all over the world, talks of misery and sufferings of people all over the world, but when it comes to hard facts, you find China helping the other side. Now, I have my own analysis. I may not be correct. Well, China would not like to help anybody unless China is sure that the philosophy and ideology she believes in are there at the end. At the moment, the Bangladesh movement doesn't appear to Chinese government as anything attractive. So what could China do? She has friendship with West Pakistan government, and that friendship is built on anti-Indian feeling of both the governments. So why lose that friend? So go on helping that friend. In the meantime, the war will continue. More miseries and sufferings will befall the lot of the millions of my countrymen. And perhaps through sufferings and miseries, a day may come when China may see a ray of hope in that part of the world. So she'll have to wait till such time. Meanwhile, maintain our friendship with West Pakistan.
I was just wondering, if we are supplying foreign aid to West Pakistan, we are in effect interfering in the civil war, right? By giving aid to West Pakistan?
That's the point I tried to drive in. I said that, in course of my brief and hurried statement, that, well, American aid to Pakistan government would mean, as my friend has said, abatement of the crime, would mean continuation of the war for a longer period and more miseries. And that's why we want you, ladies and gentlemen, to stop that aid from your side.
Any other questions?
What governments are giving assistance?
To us? Well, to Bangladesh. Well, as I said, that at the moment we have been trying to obtain the help of other nations. And the only help we see, apparently, is the help rendered by the India government to the refugees and other governments helping the refugees. And we are not receiving any economic or military aid directly from anybody. But we know that we have to have arms, and these arms, Liberation Army knows where to procure from, how, and with what.
One last question.
Yes.
I'd like Dr. Mallick to give maybe one or two specific descriptions of what happened at the
Well, as you must have read, the story is like this. Yahya left at 8 p.m. and the army cracked down after 3 hours, 11:15. My telephone connection with Dhaka from Chittagong was snapped exactly at 10 minutes past 11. I knew that something was going to happen. So within 3 hours after Yahya's departure, the army moved out of the barracks, surrounded Dhaka University campus, and started shelling the entire campus. For 4 long hours they shelled. Towards morning, they entered in batches in the dormitories and gunned down the students there, both boys and girls. Heaps of corpses were there, heaps of dead bodies were there, seen by people next morning. Then the army also entered the staff quarters, teachers' residential houses, and killed these teachers and sometimes also the members of their families. In one case I know, 2 young boys of a teacher, Dr. Munirujjaman, aged 11 and 13, were shot. They fell on the ground. The mother went to take them. The mother was pushed out, and the boys were allowed to die due to excessive bleeding. They were not allowed to remove from the place. That's the kind of killing that they did.
I'm sorry, we're out of time. Thank you very much.